Hi everyone, my name is Samantha Dewey, and today we'll be looking a little bit at Erik Erikson's theory of psychosocial development. Alright, so our objective today is to be able to identify the 8 stages of Erik Erikson's theory of psychosocial development, as well as each of the stages' conflicts and possible outcomes. We want to think about how we can apply Erikson's theory to the way we act and respond to situations within our own classroom. We'll take a look at some background information about Erikson. We'll go through the stages of development, and then I will give you your discussion questions. So Erik Erikson was born in Frankfurt, Germany on June 15, 1902. He actually started out as an art teacher at Anna Freud's public school. Yes, Anna Freud, as in Sigmund Freud, she was his youngest daughter and a leader in psychoanalytic child psychology. He eventually trained under Anna and became a psychoanalyst in his own right. In 1933, he received a diploma from the Vienna Psychoanalytical Institute, which, besides his Montessori diploma, is the only degree or diploma he holds. He worked at many facilities and universities in America, including Yale, Harvard, and the University of California at Berkeley. He actually immigrated in 1933 to America to avoid the rise of Adolf Hitler. He's best known for his 8 stages of life psychosocial theory, which he did base off of Sigmund Freud's original 5 stages of life. His was more of a psychosexual theory, and Erikson definitely evolved that into something that we know well today. Erikson's theory of psychosocial development presents 8 stages of life from infancy to adulthood, and they track the development of a person's identity and personality. Each of these stages is marked by a psychosocial crisis. In that stage, a person needs to overcome this crisis to be considered successful. When they do overcome this crisis, they acquire certain strengths or virtues that they take with them and helps build that personality and identity. This is going to give them a healthy personality, according to Erikson, and a really strong ego. On the other hand, failure to overcome these crises can result in feelings of inadequacy or an identity crisis, something we'll talk more about later. But how does understanding this theory help us understand our students? It's easy. If we understand what stage of life our students are in, we can understand what crisis that they're currently facing socially, and we can help support them through that crisis and help make sure that they gain that strength and virtue that they're supposed to gain in that time period. This also helps us know who their significant relationships are with, again, helping support the development of our students' identity and personality. Because Erikson developed his theory based off of Freud's original 5 stages of life theory, it's kind of important to see the difference between the two before we move forward, so we can see where Erikson really deviates from Freud's original theories. While Freud focused his theory on the sexual development of a person, Erikson focuses his theory a lot more on the social development of the person. So a person in relation to the people around them and their significant relationships that are not always their mother and father. Unlike Freud, Erikson's theory placed a significance on a person's ego. Freud's tends to kind of balance between the ego, the superego, and the id. Erikson believed that the key to a healthy personality was a strong ego, a strong sense of identity, and that a weaker ego or a weaker sense of identity would lead to, again, that identity crisis, which is really detrimental to a person's development. So the first stage in Erikson's theory of psychosocial development is stage 1, infancy. It ranged from birth to about year 1.5, and the main crisis here is that trust versus mistrust crisis. What does that mean? When a baby is born, they're inherently mistrustful. The world is new, it's scary, they don't understand anything about it, so they're going to have to learn how to trust those people closest to them so that they can form healthy relationships. Most significantly, the mother or the maternal or closest parent who's feeding and having most physical contact with the baby is going to be the most important person to help build up that trust. When the baby does build that trust, they gain a sense of hope that even though this world is new and overwhelming, they can overcome it because they have a significant relationship. Failure to overcome this crisis can result in a permanent mistrust of others and in the world. Stage 2 of this theory is early childhood, which lasts from about 1.5 to 3 years old. The central crisis here is autonomy versus shame. Autonomy in the sense that these toddlers are going to have a growing feeling of independence. They're going to want to do things on their own. They're going to want to master skills such as dressing themselves, feeding themselves, and potty training, using the bathroom on their own. They're going to learn to say no, they want to do something or they don't want to do something, again, creating their own sense of independence. And when they do this, they're going to earn that virtue of will and control. Their most significant relationship is still their parents, and it's imperative, according to Erikson, for parents to allow children to practice this independence and autonomy. Without it, they're going to have feelings of self-doubt and a lower self-esteem. So that will lead to that shame without practicing their independence. Stage 3 of this theory is the play stage, also known as the locomotor stage. It's from ages 3 to 6, and the central crisis here is initiative versus guilt. These children will be taking initiative in the sense that they will be continuing to practice that independence, but through play with their peers. They're going to be making up games. They're going to be taking the initiative to make up these games and to copy adults. They're also going to learn to ask why, ask a lot of questions, and taking that, again, that initiative to help further their own learning. Parents are still very significant in this stage, as are peers. If parents ignore the questions that are being asked or get annoyed by them, they might create that sense of guilt in the child. Also, if parents don't encourage the playing or they over-control the children, they can cause feelings of guilt, and the child might not want to initiate then or in the future. However, Erikson argues that some guilt helps children understand self-control and social boundaries, so it is a balance between the two to create a truly healthy personality. If they're successful in balancing between initiative and guilt, they're going to earn a sense of purpose in life because they feel like they can take action and take control in the correct way. The fourth age is the school age, also known as the latency stage. This is between ages 6 and 12 years old, and our central crisis here is industry versus inferiority. Industry in the sense that these children want to win approval and feel pride. They earn competency when they're encouraged to achieve their goals. So it's a very social stage. It's where school becomes the most significant relationship, as does the relationship with their peers. So they're learning to do things, they're feeling good about achieving goals, they're feeling good about getting good grades like our guy in our picture here. But a failure to develop this will cause a feeling of inferiority. They won't feel like their strongest selves. However, like in stage 3, Erikson does call for a balance between the two. He says that a balance between a little inferiority and some industry will create the sense of modesty in a person. So again, striving for that healthy relationship. Our fifth stage is the adolescent stage, which ranges from ages 12 to 18 years old, and our central crisis here is identity versus role confusion. This stage is different because we're now shaped by what we do versus what is done to us. We're starting to take that autonomy and independence from earlier stages and really make big decisions in our lives. Kids in this stage will become more independent. They're going to be looking towards the future, searching for their own identity, and trying to figure out their roles as adults. Who are they going to be when they grow up? They're also going to be determining sexual and occupational goals, trying to shape that future for themselves. They're going to be separating from their family, which is why the peers are now their most significant relationship, because they're trying to, again, establish that self-identity, their own ideals and life philosophy. And this development is going to lead to a really strong devotion to friends and to their new ideals. However, failure to establish a sense of identity can lead to role confusion, or what Erikson called an identity crisis. Children in the middle of role confusion will experiment with different lifestyles. They can also withdraw from responsibilities and start to rebel in this stage. Stage 6 is young adulthood. It's from ages 18 to about 40 years of age, and our central crisis here is intimacy versus isolation. They're now trying to create long-term commitments outside of their immediate family, with marriage and children of their own, as well as with close personal friends. The goal of this stage is to create loving relationships. However, if a person is unsuccessful in this stage, they can feel isolated, and by extension of that, get very defensive and come off as feeling superior than others when really they are feeling very inferior because of that feeling of isolation. Stage 7 is middle adulthood, which ranges from about 40 to 65 years of age. And our central crisis here is generativity versus stagnation. Generativity meaning that a person is trying to find their life's work and take care of other people. They're trying to contribute to society in a larger picture way, so they're focusing on finding a job that matters to them or that they enjoy, which is why the workplace becomes a really significant relationship. A person in this stage is going to care for themselves and their own families, so their children, the family that they have created, and their close community. They're going to want to give back, not just through work, but through volunteering. People in this stage are also going to fear inactivity and meaninglessness. As you get older, your relationships or goals change, and without that feeling of contribution and care for yourself and for the people around you, you can feel that stagnation, which is feeling disconnected or uninvolved in the community. Stage 8, our last stage of our theory of psychosocial development, is late adulthood. It ranges from ages 65 until death. And our central crisis here is integrity versus despair. A person in this stage of life will be recovering from the hard work of middle adulthood, hopefully in retirement, so they'll be less productive. However, they should spend this time, according to Erikson, contemplating their accomplishments. If you're successful in this stage, you gain that virtue of wisdom because of all of that self-reflection. You'll look at life as complete. You'll look at your life with a sense of closure, and you'll be more accepting of your death. However, if you fail in this crisis and in this stage, there'll be feelings of guilt, depression, despair because of things you did or did not do in other stages of your life. This will lead to a person being less accepting of their death. However, Erikson does argue that there needs to be a balance in this stage as well. So a person who is successful in this stage will feel some kind of despair because otherwise they're in denial of their own impending death. The most significant relationship here is all of mankind, because it's very important to this stage to accept kind of the life cycle as almost over and as something that was coherent and whole, and just being very accepting of that. All right, and those are our 8 stages of Erik Erikson's theory of psychosocial development. I'm going to leave you with a couple discussion questions to answer for me. Number 1, identify which age group you teach. How can you use your understanding of their primary conflict to better respond to behavioral situations in your classroom? Number 2, identify the strength that your students are supposed to gain according to Erikson's theory. How can you best foster your students' strengths in your classroom? And number 3, in your opinion, which stage has the most detrimental effects on a person's personality and why? All right, I hope you enjoyed this presentation and learned a ton about the theory of psychosocial development. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.